we were using the builder for just the Beagle 5, which was done by another dev, which does Beagle boards. And he had worked on the Beagle 5 project before it died off. But my goal has been to keep both of the boards supported, because there are well over 250 to 350 of the Beagle 5 boards that were put out there. And we're currently updating the bootloader and the settings for the Beagle 5, which I'm testing right now, which will allow you to run the images we build on both boards. Right now, the problem that we have with the Beagle 5 versus the Vision 5 is that on the Beagle 5, it only does EXT Linux, and on the Vision 5, we've actually moved over to UEFI. So we have to update the bootloader on the Beagle 5 to the latest bootloader in order to get it working. And I'm working on that, and it's going to take a little bit, because every time we try to compile the latest bootloader on the Beagle 5, it drops out on us. It won't compile, so we're trying to figure that out. But Babels, as we call them, over on our main channel on IRC, I mean on Discord, I've been working with him, and like we said, we've got so far the desktops we support are XFCE and IceWM is what we have gotten working, and I'm currently working to get a few of the window managers, because the problem we're having right now with many of the desktops is the fact that it doesn't have full video drivers and that they're still being developed, and therefore we get real choppy video when you try to move around. The mouse is really jumpy. But so far, the only two we got working was IceWM, which jokingly y'all can laugh. I was actually going to go back to using the Rocks. I don't know if you guys ever saw Rocks desktop. It was basically a clone of the Acorn desktop. I was actually going to release a revision of the Acorn OS just to tease everybody and go, look, we gave rebirth to Acorn. And then one of the guys said, don't do it, they'll shoot you.
So that's the that was the original ARM computer, right? The Acorn.
Yes, with the Acorn. Well, there were a couple. There was different RISC processors at the time, which were actually quote, they weren't really RISC, but they were. And yeah, there was the PowerPC RISC. There was the RISC that we used on the Acorn and the Archimedes, which I grew up using the Archimedes. I grew up in Canada, and for me, being up there at the time, we had Archimedes everywhere. And I had an Archimedes 1020, was it 1020 or 1030? I had 1030. I had the red one. And I grew up with Acorn OS, and I knew it quite well. So it was like nice. And actually, there actually is a version you can run right now over on a Pi board.
Oh,
so
cool.
if you want to go play with that, yeah, they gave rebirth to the RISC OS and put it on emulator on the Pi board. So that's what got me back into thinking if we made our OS look like it a little, it would keep it going. And I thought and I may still do it. I may put an image out there just to say, look, I've made it look like the old OS. You're welcome to test and play with. But that's what we've done so far. And I hadn't heard much from, this is the first time I actually got the link. Last time I got the link, it didn't work last month.
Oh, so, for the open hours, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's too bad. Normally the way it works is we have this community website, so you should be able to RSVP on there. But if you do have trouble, you can message me, or maybe email might be the, let me go back up to your top. Like, feel free, if you ever have problems with the link, again, you can feel free to email me and I can see
Okay.
what's going on. Yeah, I've not heard that before, so if there might be some issue that I don't know about. But typically it should be that you can just RSVP there and you should get an email. But sometimes I get confused myself a bit. So yeah, feel free to email me, or I was gonna say you could ping me on Discord. I think it will pop up on my phone, but I have to say I don't check Discord all that often, but I think I do get a notification of it, I get message, but email is also what works good if you ever run into any issues.
Yeah, the hard part we've had with the RISC-V community on Discord was at one point it started picking up because the old RISC-V channel died, and I started up a second one, and we picked up for a long time there. But then after the Beagle 5 project died, everybody gave up. Everybody walked away, and all of a sudden, I think it took a year and a half, almost 2 years, to get the Vision 5 out, and we've got them out, and we're developing. But it is the only problem I know too that people are saying is that compared to ARM, the RISC-V boards are going to be overpriced as it is right now, because the current price is $150 compared to you can go get an ARM board that like the T4 right now for $80 or less and be able to go do ARM. And people are just saying, if it's going to be that much of a price difference, we'll just stick with ARM. And I'm like, but RISC-V is going to be a future. It's going to make things a lot better, but it's been a fight. So
yeah, I think it'll probably take several years for there to be any sort of parity in price versus performance. But I think for most of us that are interested in RISC-V, it's not so much that, you know, right now it's competitive based on price, but it's just kind of, it's a new and interesting thing. I mean, that's what probably is interesting me the most, is that it's new and interesting. And also the specs open, and that like there is the opportunity to influence it, and also just like there's a lot of software that needs to be ported and a lot of things to be worked out. So but I agree that like if someone's looking at a RISC-V board versus an ARM board, you know, I expect it'll probably be 2 or 3 years before there's maybe some parity there, right, in terms of the price versus performance.
Hey, Robert, if you can hear me, we do have images, both the same images that we run on the Vision 5 actually work on the D1, and we have them in both our download sites. Babels has been putting them up on Google Drive. I actually have a server with the Armbian group that I actually list mine, and I've built the images for both so that you guys can also test and decide. And like I said, I'm currently working to get, hold on, give me a minute here. Let me go get my RISC-V directory here going. Come on, open up.
So you had to do something clever at runtime with the stupid PTE entries on the D1?
Well, we had a little bit of a fight. Actually, the one who did the big work was Babels. Babels busted it on the bootloader and got it working. I basically have been, he was the one who took Armbian, converted it over to running RISC-V. I then jumped in where I had been working on the Armbian group for, I think I've been on Armbian now for 12 years, working with doing desktops and other parts of it. And I basically jumped in and I've been working on the desktops again for RISC-V. And the problem we're having with RISC-V that I don't blame them is we've still got a lot of packages that have to be updated so that we can get them working. But yes, we do have run levels working, and I do believe that he also got them changed over to running UEFI also. We basically have been moving over to UEFI versus EXT Linux for better performance. You can also run multi-kernel now, so you could install multiple kernels, and with the bootloader you can now say, oh, I want to run this kernel for work and this kernel for testing. The big things we've still got to work on is a bootloader screen so that you can also get the fact that it will say RISC-V. On the desktops I made, I actually have them running RISC-V backgrounds. I actually took some time and made 5 different backgrounds, which if you're on the Discord servers, that you guys can roll back. Let me find out where I put them. They're in there. I can also repost them. I did 5 loaders and for light DM, and I did 5 backgrounds to match that all have the RISC-V logo on them. Since this is an open source project, it says I'm allowed to use them because I'm not making anybody pay for them. So I put the big RISC-V logo across the front on the light DM, and in the lower right hand corner I put the small square RV logo down in the corner, just so people could say, hey, it shows that we're running RISC-V. But like I said, I'm still working. I'm working now on the Awesome desktop. Problem with the Awesome is currently I have a couple libraries that are not there that it's complaining about. And the other one I'm working on is Xmonad. The i3 works, but the problem I have with i3 is the mouse locks up.
Is there anyone that you prefer in particular of those different?
Right now I run the actually on 2 different boards. On the Beagle 5, I am running XFCE. On the Vision 5, I'm actually running the IceWM. I do have to say the IceWM is almost twice as fast in performance because it doesn't load it down because it's a window manager versus a desktop. I think until we get better drivers for video, and I think the other problem is too that both these boards use a LCD to HDMI. So you have to go from LCD over to HDMI to get the HDMI out. And I think that causes some problems where we don't get the full video driver. The other problem too is you do not get HDMI audio. And I think they're working on the next version of the board. They say they hope to have that, but we currently do not. The all-winter D1 board, yeah. There's also another board that's going to be coming out. What was the name of it? Hold on. Let me get my web browser here. RISC-V. Where did they put it? It was a Berry board. Oh no, the MQ Pro Mag called the Mango Pie, which is it's out. It's on AliExpress. I'll give you guys the copy here. Come over here, paste. That's the other board that's out. That is a development board right now, but it's out, so you guys can also play with that one. The Mango Pie D1 seems to have the early versions had a problem that the new ones don't, where the video would cut off automatically. But apparently the newer boards that are out now, I guess, which are version 2, seem to have no problems. I have yet to get the board. I'm waiting on mine. It's been on back order for a month.
I also like it. I like the form factor, and I also like that they designed it with KiCad, which is an open source CAD program, which is I think pretty neat. The main reason I point people to the Lychee one is because it has, at least for now, better distribution. Because Seed Studio carries it, and then Seed Studio is also supplier to DigiKey and Mouser, that it's a bit easier to get the Lychee for right now. But I hope Mango Pie gets more distribution. I mean, I see it's on AliExpress, but for some people that may or may not work out well for them.
Yeah, the Cypede has a better engineered front end bus too.
Yeah, I want to get my hands on the Lychee board. I've got to see if I can get one. $25, not bad. I'll have to order. I'll have to try and get on and get one later today. Because I like I said, I've been over on the Beagle 5 Vision 5 side because I actually got sent both boards for development. And I didn't even know about the Lib Jpiod. I knew about the Mango Pi, and the Mango Pi said they were going to send a board, but then all of a sudden they quit sending any boards to developers and put them up for sale. And it's like, wait a minute here. So you're going to take and say no to developers, but you're just going to throw it out on the market was the only part I got upset about. But other than that, but no, let me give you guys our GitHub also. So if you guys want to get in, hold on a minute here. Let me get over to GitHub. And then 150 Babel's build. Okay. Copy. Let me come over here. This is the main GitHub with Babel's right now. And if you pull the GitHub and scroll down to RISC-V, that is our builder. And it's really easy to build. I even have a build script that will help you build. If any of you want to get on and develop and help us move further and want to look at the source code, we are looking for help. Currently, Babel's has been doing a lot of the work, but I think he would help alongside of me doing desktops and that. I have a lot of the desktops ready to go. Right now, I have my own GitHub where I've been working on it. Let me go look here. So far, the desktops I've split up into 3 environments: DE for desktop environment, TWM for tiling window manager, and then WM for window manager. And the desktop environments that I have basically got set up and ready to go once we have proper drivers that I couldn't get working because the drivers weren't there. We have Budgie, Cinnamon, Enlightenment, Gnome, KDE Plasma, LXQT, Mate. Mate does build, but it's got a few problems that I'm still working on, but it does work. It's just a little bit, I'm trying to fix the GUI up to look a lot better once it's done this week, which is my weekend project I hope to have. And then we have XFCE, and those are all the desktop environments. As for tiling environments, I've been working on Awesome, i3WM, Qtile, and Xmonad, because those seem to be the big 4 that everybody wants. And I know that there's videos that support them that will help people who want to get on and play with them. And then for just window managers, so far, I've got IceWM, JWM, and the other 2 I'm working on are Flexbox and OpenBox. Those are the ones that I'm working on to get working as of right now in our current build.
Is there a list of somewhere of what you were saying here of the different window managers and desktop environments?
I will build one up because right now, if you go in, I will build a list of what I have been working on. Basically, right now it's all in the Git code of. If you go into the code and go under config and desktops, you can see we have both Jammy and Sid. So we're both building Debian and Ubuntu, but the problem we have with Sid right now is we do not have the my brain just went bad. UEFI packages. They have not been ported to straight Debian yet. They are in Jammy. So most right now what we're building is strictly Jammy Ubuntu. And that's Babel's is working on getting the packages, but yeah, right now, like I said, so basically the way it works, if you go back in there for a minute, I'll explain something. If you go back under, go back under Jammy.
Okay.
Actually, you're in the wrong one. Go under. See where it says Armbian TV up here?
Yeah.
click
around
that,
branch.
go down to RISC-V.
Okay.
Okay. Now under environments, click environments. Okay. These are the current environments that I have been working with so far.
Okay.
That's everything in a list.
Okay.
That's the list of what I have been working to get working. It's going to take more as I go, but I'm busted. I spend about 4 to 5 hours a night working on the desktops.
Wow.
Well, it keeps me from getting myself in trouble.
Sure.
Even for my old age, I could be out getting in trouble, but I try not to. I'm either in front of the computer or I tried to go to the lake and go fishing, and fishing cost me a lot last year. A lot of development time. But as it works in these subdirectories, in the Armbian subdirectory like we had on Armbian, we're eventually going to rename all this, you guys also. We are actually going to rename this the RISC-V builder. And we're going to work on some code to get it changed. And the reason is because Igor, current head of the Armbian group, has said he wants nothing to do with RISC-V and he will not integrate our code into it. So we took the code, we converted it for RISC-V, and I'm slowly going through on a separate branch I have sitting on my desktop, and I'm taking out Armbian and I'm putting RISC-V OS. So basically we're just going to make it go that way until we can find another name. We are open to names if anybody can think of it. It would be RISC-OS, but RISC-OS was what was known for Acorn.
Right. Right. So I'm not too familiar with Armbian. Like what I'm getting, like the name makes me think of it. It's like a flavor of Debian for ARM, but what exactly is Armbian?
Actually, Armbian, which is if you go to armbian.org or armbian.com, it should be either. Armbian was basically for all the ARM HF ARM64 boards, and it is basically Linux. It's Debian and Ubuntu. It's a dual builder, and it's made for all the ARM boards that are out there. Now they cut a lot of the old ARM boards out, but the problem I had with it that got me upset that while I was developing for RISC-V, for Armbian, was the head of the group, Igor. He's an okay guy, but he's very much one of these that's an over control freak who everything he has to say yes, no, and made it really hard to work with him because he also didn't know how to talk with people. He wouldn't get on and communicate. He wouldn't talk with you. He won't do any voice conversation, and he would turn everything into an argument. And I just got tired of it. And once I heard about RISC-V, I jumped over here, and it's where I've been spending 90% of my time. I really do think we have a product here that will eventually, once they move it up. Right now, yes, we are very much a child board. We are still developing, but once we get to where we have full video drivers, we have audio on HDMI out and all that, I think we'll be good. We did find a problem with the Vision 5 board, though, that Babels and I found that we've got to report to the community. Apparently, the fan, if you run the fan on the board, it causes audio distortion. Other than that, it works fine.
So it's interesting.
Yeah. Other than that, it seems to work. Audio will play. Video is very jumpy. If you try to play the test MP4 that we have on the desktop, it plays, but it's just very slow frame. That's why it's on there. It's just as a test. But we've been working. We would like the other thing too that we do not currently have on RISC-V is JIT. Which, for those of you who don't know what JIT is, just in time, it is a Java scripter which is used in Mozilla, Firefox, Thunderbird. It's used in Chrome, and without JIT, we currently don't have what I call high-end web browsers. The only browser that we found to work, let me go back here and see in the environment.
So
Dillo. Dillo's the only browser we managed to get working.
have you taken a look at, one of the other RISC-V ambassadors, his name is Wei Wu. He's normally on the open hours for the one that happens in the US evening, which is in morning in Asia. And his group has been doing a lot of work on that. And I think JIT is working for V8 for the V8 engine, which is what Chrome uses. They've also think they've been working on SpiderMonkey, but he actually, when he joins on the RISC-V open hours that works for China, which would be the next one on August 10th, he usually gives an overview of them. And I think they have stuff working on SpiderMonkey.
Okay, because I know that they were working on, there's V8 and V9. There's two different versions that have been working, and I have been trying to follow it, but I haven't seen any of it merged into what would be working on Debian or Ubuntu yet. I don't see it as being merged in. I think they're still really developing it. Last I heard, it's been 2 months since I've been able to look at it, only because I was over here working on getting all this working so that we at least had images that worked on both the boards, on all three of the boards that we now have. Because to me, that was important that we have desktops and CLI versions. I got to compile a CLI version for the D1, or also known as the Zera board.
What is it?
The ZEH board. Hold on. Hold on. Where did I put it? GitHub. Hold on. Wrong one. Yeah, RISC-64 build. Hold on. Config boards. Beagle 5, Star 5. Nezha, Nezha.
Oh yeah, the all-winner board.
Yeah.
The official all-winner board. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the ones we, like I said, the three that we currently support are the Beagle 5, Star 5, and the Nezha are in the builder. So, and I'll make sure to put my script up in the GitHub later today. So I basically wrote a simple script where instead of having to go through our GUI and answer every question, you can just go in, change a couple lines as to what board, what desktop you want to build, and then you run the script and it builds it. So it's been a lot of work for us, and I'm glad you guys don't mind me talking a little this morning. I'm sorry. I'll shut up here in a minute. I just want to get
good. This one tends to be a bit smaller. So we do this one and in the US morning, so people that are in Europe can conceivably join because it's like early evening for them. And then we do another one every 2 weeks we do this. So once a month it's US morning, and then once a month it's US evening, which allows Asia to join because it's in the morning there. But this one, the US morning one, tends to be on the smaller side. So I'm actually glad that you joined because sometimes this group can be quite small. Actually, I was mentioning Wei Wu and his team at the Chinese Academy of Sciences. They do a lot of tool chain work, so they usually join and on the other one, the one that happens in the evening here in the US, and they actually often give updates and everything like that. So then that next one will be happening on August 10th. So if you're able to, I think that would be a really interesting one probably for you to join.
I should be able to. I think I'm on the list for that one. I think I put myself in for it.
So they've been doing a really good job. Like he gets there's a bunch of there's different graduate students working on different projects like SpiderMonkey and these sorts of things. So oftentimes they'll go through and they'll all give short updates on where they're at with their respective projects.
Now, I do know there's another company out there called Friendly Arm, which I deal with, that I've been dealing with for years, that do ARM boards. Wang and Lee and Wong are all working now, looking at the RISC-V chip, and they're going to try to add in. But the problem is that we've already gotten kind of a pushback from a couple people because of the fact of the Vision 5 board. They're like, oh, so you guys are going to duplicate the Vision 5 board. Well, no, we want to work alongside the Vision 5 board, but we want to add what we can and work on doing where video or whatever. But like I said, as I've been looking at the kernel, by the way, the kernel source, I don't know if any of you guys have been looking at it for the kernel itself. Let me see if I have that one
Yeah,
in my.
I mean, that's mainly my main involvement is on the kernel side.
Yeah, I thought you and I had talked in the past about the kernel, because at one point I was asking questions about the kernel having problems where parts were not working. But the Vision 5 have been, the Star 5 Vision 5 group have been doing really good with the kernel, and that's the kernel we use in our images. We actually use their kernel source because at the current time there is no mainline support.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the nice things, so Emil, who goes by MIL, he now works for Ubuntu. So he's actually he's now kind of focusing on all the different RISC-V boards, but traditionally going back for like a year, he's been doing, or more than a year, probably a year and a half, he's been doing kernel releases for the Star 5 SoC. So he does a really good job with that. He also put a lot of effort into upstreaming those changes, which is he's made pretty good progress with that.
Well, that's his kernel source we use, but the problem is that everything in it says for do not upstream, do not upstream. I mean, they put it in one Star 5 group Linux kernel, but so far they have not pushed everything. Oh, I gotta cancel this. Hold on. The problem is that they have yet to upstream it to the main kernel, and I think that's because they don't want to until they get it all fixed.
Yeah, so Emil put a lot of work into getting some of the basics done, like things like the clocks and the pin control and the GPIO, but definitely for the peripherals that most of us are probably interested in, things like video and camera and stuff like that. I don't think they'll probably make a big effort to upstream those until they get their next generation chip out. So the one that's currently being used, which is called the JH7100, that one is essentially a prototype chip that was just made in small quantity. Their full production design is called the JH7110, so 10 instead of 00.
Yeah.
And that one is going to have, that's the one that would have a GPU as well.
Right. Now, is that going to have four? I hadn't read where they had decided. Is that going to be a 4 or a 6 core?
I think 4 core. I'm not 100% certain, but I think one of the reasons why they probably aren't investing too heavily into upstreaming all the additional peripherals for the 7100 is that it's really not meant to be like a long-term production part. It was, I would say the quantities are probably less than 10,000 of that, and I don't think there'll probably be any more. So I imagine that they're probably gonna be investing most of their resources.
Still a lot.
I think it's probably less than that. I mean, I don't know exactly. I would say, it might even be less than, I would guess maybe less than 5,000. It was the way it was made. It was made in a way that how you do prototypes, which is like low. You don't use, instead of doing full wafers, it's like partial wafers, which is not very cost effective and also doesn't yield very high volume. But mainly you do that when like you're in the prototype phase. But the full production part isn't out yet. So I would imagine once the full production part comes out that they'll be putting a lot of effort into upstreaming everything. But Emil did do a lot of good work to get the basics working. So, I think that my understanding, I haven't tried it recently, but I think that mainline can boot on it, but the peripherals that you have available may not be all the peripherals that you want. I'm pretty sure things like video wouldn't work, but so it kind of depends on what you want to do. But I think Camille has mainline booting, at least for a basic system. Basic, I mean, like, maybe serial, and I don't know, maybe networking or something like that. But
no, consoles work. We have the console working. We have the serial working.
okay.
I do know that there's going to be a split off that's happening in the kernel too, that's causing a fight right now, is how GPIOs are handled, because they're looking to move from the way the current kernel handles GPIOs to using some new part called GPIOD and
Well, it's
GPIO.
not, yeah, so I would say it's not. So what's happened is maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, the existing sysfs interface for GPIO in Linux was deprecated, and it was replaced by one that uses character devices, and that's called GPIOD. The D means descriptor, as in file descriptors. So so the sysfs interface is deprecated. Of course, most people have not removed it from their kernel config yet, but it is deprecated. So that is like the correct way of doing things. Of course, there's a lot of existing user space applications that use the sysfs interface, right? So I know based on pushback from many people that the new interface, or it's not even new anymore, but the GPIOD interface definitely has some shortcomings in some people's opinion, or just it's different, right? So it's always challenging.
Well, the problem I'm finding, like Ubuntu and Debian have not put it in their core yet. You actually have to install it separately.
Oh, so do you mean that the tools? Yeah, so the GPIO, yeah, so GPIOD itself is in the kernel, and that's the idea where for each GPIO chip you get a character device, and then there's unfortunately the way it works for use of VCU, it's difficult to use because it uses IO controls or IOCTLs, which are less intuitive, right, than reading and writing to sysfs files. So Bartosz, he created a set of user space tools. It's called Lib Jpiod, which allows people to type in commands in the shell, or use it in like Python or other languages. But yeah, the downside to that is then it has to be packaged by the distros. You can install it directly yourself, but if you don't do that, then you have to rely on the distro packagers.
The only reason I know about it is I work on another project called SVX Link and Open Repeater as a ham operator. And we're finding that with the newer versions and trying to move out of the sys and over to GPIOD, that we're having to rewrite half our codes because to get it to work right. And it's been a battle. But it's just watching the kernel move. I do know that a lot of people are still trying to learn about the GPIO changes. So
so that is kind of a thing in general with Linux, where there's a lot of people that are still kind of discovering that. And in fact, there's a new version of the Lib Jpiod tools that are about to come out that has a lot of improvements. But it is one of those things where it's evolving, right? So I would say, I mean, Bartosz, who develops the tools, is always open to feedback. But I meid it sounds like the other bottleneck is the maintainers in the different distros. Like I believe the Debian maintainer for Lib Jpiod D is a bit slow on getting the newer releases. But I think this may help because in September timeframe, Bart's trying and release the version 2 of Lib Jpiod D, which means that hopefully that'll be a sign for all the distro package maintainers to hopefully update, since it's a new major release number. So that should hopefully help to get people updated, because for example, like you might have 1.3, but then there's new flags for the utilities in 1.4, and then it gets confusing, right? If the user's on Debian and then the GPIO set or something doesn't have that flag. So I think with the new release of V2 from Bart this fall, hopefully that can reset the versions that everyone's using, if package maintainers get updated to that. The other thing I wanted to mention, since we brought up the RISC-V kernel, is that the IRC channel, the RISC-V IRC channel on Lib Jpiod is actually really good for kernel questions. So Emil's on there, also Palmer, who's the overall RISC-V architecture maintainer in Linux, and then a bunch of other of the RISC-V kernel developers are in there. So that's always a really good place to ask questions.
I was in there originally at one point, but when people were like, "Oh, you're dealing with the Beagle 5," and after it had died off, they were like, "Why are you supporting a dead board?" And I'm like, because there's well over 500 boards that were made, and that's 500 users that still want development and still want to be able to play with their boards. And for the longest time, like I said, I was using a different builder, and the problem we had to do was I had to use a kernel builder, then I had to manually put the kernel over because of the way it was done. With this new builder, I don't have that problem, but we're starting to get to where the other thing that we've got to do is we've got to get a server set up for our cache of the compiled kernel and the compiled parts, which I'll get up. I'm working on now. But then I got a lot of pushback, and Ismail and I had a little bit of a run-in at points, and he got mad at me, and I understand it was because I was very much, we have a kernel builder over here, and we have a builder system that works on these boards. Can you help me? And he just bluntly was like, I don't have the time to deal with dead boards, and basically blocked me for about a month where he wouldn't even answer my questions, where I said, look, can you at least give me pointers? And I finally said, okay, I understand you don't have time.
Well,
but
I think,
then,
I mean, part of the thing, I think last year, many people, including myself, were kind of burnt out because it was quite disappointing to have that project canceled. And, you know, a lot of people, including Emil, put a lot of effort into it. So there was a period of time last year where I think no one wanted to hear about that board, but I think that's definitely changed now. You know, the newer board came out, and also I think now Emil's full-time job is RISC-V Linux stuff. So you know, maybe if you get in touch with them again, it might be different now.
yeah.
I think.
Well, now that we have the new builder and it works, and I give Babel's total thanks for taking a project that I was already working on and make it work with this project. I think it's been a really good thing. Here, hold on call. Okay, I have people messaging me. I'm like, no, I'm on a phone call right now. But just so you guys know, I don't mean it, but you guys think I'm being a hard ass or anything. I'm not trying to be. This is just something I really do see a product that could be much better. Plus, on top of that, having grown up with the Acorn Archimedes and playing with what was considered RISC back then, having RISC come back to life as the new RISC-V project, to me, kind of brings my past back to now where I'm at. And that, to me, I see the need for this, because I do think that having something that is a much simpler processor and open processor will make a better community when it comes to these boards, because it will give us a way to grow more projects. The small boards are going to be great, because I do think that once we get these small boards, which I want to get my hands on one, working. The only problem that I've had so far, even with looking at small boards, even on ARM, is DSP. Most of these boards don't have DSP, and we've got to get DSP to where projects that need audio on the small boards, like our repeater, have it. But I know that getting DSP support on anything nowadays is getting hard because of the chip shortage and everything. I'm hoping that also lightens up this year. I know that put a damper on a lot of the products. Ooh.
I don't know about that. Yeah, it's
hey,
definitely
somebody's
difficult.
running a Beagle 5. I want that breakout. I want that breakout board.
So Robert can probably say more about it, but this he linked to this video here, so I clicked on it. So I think this is a an add-on board that he and some other people had worked on. There was,
If they have it anywhere and we can find it, I would like a copy of that add-on board, because that way I could play with the GPO and all that. Now, the only other thing I don't understand, and it's strictly all the OSs, and it seems to be the same on ARM as it is on RISC. We have a 3-pin header that says debug, which is supposed to be where the actual serial connector is supposed to go. Why is nobody using it? They don't even activate it. If you go and put your head on that 3-pin header, there's no output.
I think it's been a little while for me, but I believe it is the debug UART. So, which is essentially the boot ROM. So if you're talking about the JH7100, I believe that when it boots up, you can interact with the boot ROM via that debug UART. But I don't believe it's not the same thing as like the Linux console.
Well, no, right now, if you want to connect your serial console being a UART chip, which I don't know how many people actually use them. Give me a second here. I have one that I kind of.
You mean which board are you talking about though?
This is a UART cable, guys, just so you know what we're talking about. Basically, it takes your USB, it's cut down to 3 pins, and give me a second. Where did I put my board? Okay. On the Beagle 5, right here, there's a pin header right next to the HDMI. That is your debug support. That is what everybody would think of as your serial console out, so that when you boot the board, you would see all the boot up and everything. You don't. You actually have to come over here, right next to the 5-volt power, and use the serial connector here. I get absolutely no, even when I put a debug on here, I get no output.
It is because it's a debug in the sense of debugging the SoC. So it was actually, and especially while things were new, we would use that to transfer a new first stage bootloader onto. There's a SPI flash on that board that contains the early bootloaders. And we would update those via Xterm, which is a little awkward, over that debug port. So it's not a normal debug port. Also, I remember Robert did a lot of research into this. It was a bit flaky as to which USB to serial converters it worked with. I'm trying to find, there was a repo that someone, the
CH320s are the best.
Yes, so essentially one of the ones that a lot of people were using didn't work well, but eventually we found like the ones that worked the best. It's mainly due to, like I was saying before, that this is kind of a prototype SoC, so there was a lot of things that were, maybe not ideal with it, and I think that was one of them. And it was a real pain in the butt to upload the bootloader with like Xterm and Minicom or something like that. So what was his name? Let's see. Kali Prasad. He did a really awesome job by writing this series of tools called the J. So these tools are actually, so if you use this tool and connect to that debug port, you can then upload new versions of the bootloader. So I believe, if I remember correctly, there was these second boot, which is like the first stage bootloader, and then there is the DDR init, which initializes the DDR memory, the DRAM,
and that's what you see on the serial console is the DR init, and then you see the Open SPI. And I have to say, I'm very happy about Open SPI because I had been working with it for a long time, and when I saw that RISC-V went with Open SPI, I was very happy. By the way, so you guys know, FTDI and the CH320s are the best UARTs. The Plantronic UARTs don't. The PL UARTs, one is half the drivers that they put out there have bugs in them. 2, the chips themselves, they've gone to a very generic chip that are no longer the normal chip, and they will crap out when doing data. So I have found that the CH chips seem to be the best, and I did mark that. By the way, can you link me to your notes when you're done?
Yeah,
So that
so yeah, it's this, so what we normally do is we try and put them up on the actual open hours page, but here is the link there to the Google Slides, or feel free to message me or email me, but that is the link to the Google Slides where I'm trying to get everything in there. And then once it's over with, we then will update that page that you RSVP'd on with a link to the slides and the notes.
Okay. But like I said, guys, we have a couple images, and I will make sure to go back and make a new CLI image for the Z board. Please, if you get time, we do have a bootloader update that's also in both sites. Well, actually, not on my site yet. They are on Babel's site where the Russian upload is. That's the other thing for Babel's isn't here because he's Russian. He's actually 6 hours ahead. Plus, on top of that, he is leaving to go away on holiday.
Okay.
So he's going to be gone for a week. But I did send him a link about this and said, look, when you get back from holiday, try and get in on this, because I think between you and me, we can get more people to come over and help. And I would like that. But on Babel's, if you go back up to, I think where I posted it earlier, the German site, or the Russian, his link to where he has Google Drive set
Was
up
that
with
in the Zoom chat, you mean? Or
yeah,
in Discord?
I put it up towards the top when I first was listing.
Okay.
Let me see here. I have there, and then yeah, the Google. There's your presentation, dude. Google Docs. Where'd it go?
Oh, was it the Yannick's link?
Hold on.
I think I see a Yannick's link up there at the top. So it says stat 5. Maybe that's a typo for star 5 or.
Yeah, it will say star
Okay.
5 on it. Yeah.
Okay.
That is in there. You'll see where it says update U-boot. That is where we converted from ext Linux to using UEFI. So what you have to do is you have to take a blank chip, a blank SD card. You copy that UEBT text file onto that. You put it into the star 5 board and the D1 board. It will upload the information in the bootloader to include the new drive format. It will, because that way it supports all the previous. So basically it adds 3 partitions where we used to only have 1. You now get 3 partitions. You also have, because the difference between ext Linux and UEFI Linux is you actually have 3 separate partitions. You have the UEFI, you have the ext, and then you have the bootable partition. So you have to have 3 separate partitions. So we had to add the partition break in there. It also adds to read all 3 parts for the MMC, and it updates the environment on your thing. So therefore, when you run that file, it will update the D1 and currently the Vision 5. It will, like I said, it will not do the Beagle 5 until we update the bootloader on the Beagle 5. So right now, the Beagle 5 only runs an ext image, and we have one in his downloads. If you go back to his downloads, it's the first version under the RISC-V boards does support the Beagle 5.
Okay.
So if you go up under Armbian TV, that first date on the very top, that image, that image of both IWM and that they support Beagle 5. Now they don't have all the backgrounds on it yet because he moved so fast to UEFI. I can go back in and grab an image and I could probably modify it and then reshrink it because I'm luckily enough I can shrink images. But it just got the standard background of Armbian because it was based on the Armbian back then. So, but we have an image there, so people with the Beagle 5 with EXT Linux can still boot and have an image that works. Like I said, right now, once we get the UEFI moved over to Beagle 5, they'll be able to do everything. So we're working on that. But
Cool.
I'll hand it over to the rest of the group now. Y'all can jump in here. I'm sorry I monopolized, but this was something I really wanted to get out to you guys today, is to say, look, we actually have Debian and Ubuntu images that you guys can get in and play with.
Yeah.
We've put a lot of work into it. We are still putting more work into it. Babels and I spend 5 to 7 hours, depending on our moods. But because we're in separate time zones, we kind of just message each other on the Discord. But the other thing, real quick, the other thing I'm working on, the other project is Amaberry. It is a emulator for what's that other boards out there that were like the
Another ARM board or
no, well, it wasn't on board. It was an MC. It was actually Motorola chip.
Motorola.
The MC chips.
Motorola, like 68K or like old Motorola.
Hold on.
Like retro stuff or
retro stuff. We're working to get that working. My brain just went dead. What did we call
they had the very popular 68,000, which was in the old Macs and everything like that. And they also did PowerPC as well.
Yeah, this is the Pime. It's to support Amigas. Basically, it's an Amiga emulator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Basically, this is the best of the Amiga emulators for Linux I have found, and it runs on the desktop and will work. I'm currently working with the developer of it to port it over to the RISC-V. But again, the problem we've had is trying to get it all to work with the current video.
Right.
Being there, so right now we're just using DRM and trying to get the DRM working in it. It works on Armbian, but we're trying to bring it over to RISC-V so that people who want to play with Armbian software, or not Armbian, but Amiga software, they can build an Amiga system and emulate it. I also know that the Acorn RISC emulator that's out there right now running on the Raspberry Pi, I have it in my to-do list to put it over so that you could run the existing RISC, the last version that's out there, which is the 5 version. I want to add. So that way people can put it on there and play with the old desktop and then see where I'm going to go to building a version to look like what it was, so that people can say, hey, look, we've got the RISC OS back, but it won't ever be RISC OS. It's just going to be there. I just want to make the look because I originally liked that look, and it was based on IceWM, believe it or not. IceWM was kind of the background back then, but it wasn't called IceWM. It was just IceWM came out of Acorn's desktop.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
But all right, guys, I'm going to hand it over to you. I will be here listening, but I appreciate your guys' time for allowing me to discuss this. And,
I'm glad you joined. Sometimes this is only like 15 minutes, so if there aren't many people on, so it's much better to have people join and share things. You were talking about bootloaders, and I don't know if Heinrich has his mic available, but I'm guessing the Heinrich on there is the U-boot developer who does a lot of U-boot RISC-V stuff. we had in the past actually been talking about with another person, Carl Perry, who tends to join for this time slot. He was actually really interested in booting with UEFI and in Grub as well. He talked about in the past, so
And we
not
have
sure if
it
he has.
now.
Oh, you do? Okay, that's good.
Yeah, we have UEFI and Grub in our latest images that for the Vision 5 and the D1 board. That's what we did. We added in Grub, we added in, so you get a Grub menu to where you can select the kernel now. So whereas before you didn't have that and you could only boot one loader, one kernel, you can now add in multiple kernels. Like if you're going to have your operating kernel and then you want to have a developed kernel, and maybe you have one for testing that you're testing to see how everything's going. You could put them all in the Grub list now, and you can select which to have. And that is that Babel's added that this last go round and is working on it more. But like I said, he's leaving to go on holiday. He'll be gone for a week and a half, and then he'll be back working on it. But the images that we have and our loader, our builder, y'all are welcome to get on. If you have any questions, please come over to our Discord channel and ask me. I will gladly help you where I can. I will walk you through a complete build. And anything, like if there's applications that you think should be added into the apps, where because we have an apps directory where we're outlining all the applications we're going to support, so that you can select in there, okay, I'm going to build an image and I want LibreOffice, I want this, I want that. The problem is right now in the builder, sorry about this guys, one last thing, is right now we only build by group. So you have the office group, you have the internet group, you have different select groups. I'm trying to work on a menu for that so that you'll be able to choose individually each application that you want to add. And it's going to get very big very fast, I know. But the problem that I see is that when you build a group, if you're going to build a generalized image, it's fine. But if you're going to build a customized image, I want to make it to where you could load your base apps, and then whatever you guys want to load after that, I expect to have what's going to be called a whiptail, which a lot of people don't know about whiptail or that. I plan to have a whiptail menu in there like we do now called Armbian config. So if you guys run the Armbian config on our image, you can actually go through and set up some stuff, including software.
Is it a graphical tool or
it's a terminal graphical interface?
Okay, like end curses, that sort of thing.
Kind of, yeah.
Like menu config. Okay.
Yeah. If you guys go do like I don't know any of you run Pi or that Raspberry Pis, they have Raspberry Pi config. Well, on Armbian we have Armbian config, and it's
So it's like
written in dialogue and whiptail.
Okay. So
kind
that's
of like an anchor. Think of an end curses in interface. Similar thing.
Yeah. So whiptail is a scripting language?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So basically you can script out a whole menu, and it can get big or it can be small. My plan is just to make a list of all the applications that you would want to add and say, okay, you guys can go do this. The other thing too, just one last thing, so everybody knows who doesn't know, there is currently a spike between Debian and Ubuntu going on. I don't know if you guys know about it, and this has to do with snaps. Ubuntu has moved everything to going to snaps. All your desktop applications, this is mainly for desktops. Desktops on Ubuntu are moving to snaps. Debian
is that like with the latest? Didn't we just got a new LTS?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So would that be 2204?
04 and I think soon to be 06 will be where they completely move to it. Okay. Right now in 04, you can use both.
Okay.
It will tell you that there's a snapd package, and it will tell you if there's a regular package, and it will give you a choice. But in the next release of Ubuntu, you will only be able to install snaps. They're going to move away from using standard Debian packages for Office and all that. So Debian will stick with regular packages. Ubuntu is moving over to snaps only.
Interesting.
And that is going to make a big hard point for people running and developing desktops, because when you try to develop a system for 2 builds like what we're trying to do, you have a break. Because you then have to install Snap, and you have to then write a Snap system strictly for Ubuntu, and you have to stick with the Debian system for Debian. So that's going to be a fight for anybody developing from here on out with Ubuntu and Debian. Is if you're trying to build a dual build system, it won't work. So we'll see where it goes.
It would be interesting. Maybe next time we'll get some of them. But Canonical's actually been hiring several RISC-V developers. So several of the people from the community are now with Canonical. So it would be interesting if they join in the future to see what they think, since they might have more insight into those sorts of things now. But like Emil and Heinrich and a couple other people that were doing a lot of RISC-V work are now at Canonical, which I thought was quite cool that they seem to have maybe 3 or so developers now working on RISC-V. So it'll be interesting maybe to see what they think about that. But yeah, I think I mean I currently run Ubuntu for my desktop, and I'm not sure I would like not being able to use apt anymore. So
now with running with Ubuntu as your OS desktop, what is your preferred desktop?
Just GNOME 3, or whatever their version of GNOME 3 is. For a long time I used GNOME 2 for a long time, and I really hated it when that changed, but it was a long time ago, and eventually I got used to it. So now
that's one right now that you won't see on RISC-V until they fix some problems. There are a lot of the libraries are missing.
I wouldn't say like I care. I don't care that much. It's just kind of like I lack the motivation to switch to something else right now. Like whenever I hang out with people at conferences or something like that, and I see them using like tile window managers, I'm always feeling like I should switch. But I'm a bit lazy when it comes to my desktop environment. But someday I want to be one of those cool people with a tiled window manager.
Well, can I give you a suggestion to get you started? Honestly, since you do work with RISC-V, is take some time, grab the ICWM image, play with it. You might want to update your bootloader like we show you. Basically, like I said, all you do is put it on take that UEnvironment text file, put it on a blank SD, put it in your unit. Now, you'll have to go under the 2 separate directories depending on what board you're playing with. There's one for each one because they're written differently. You take that file, put it on a card, stick it in your device, boot it up. You'll see where it goes through it. We'll say updating environment, done. Turn it off, unplug the chip, put the new chip in. It will boot up. Our images are different from the other images because you actually, instead of having pre-built users, which everybody's used to, you actually get to develop your user. We have a first login. You set your passwords for your root user. It will then ask you for a username. You put in your user passwords, and then it will ask you a couple more questions, including set up Wi-Fi. So if you're not plugged into Ethernet, it will ask you, do you want to set up Wi-Fi?
Cool.
So then you set up your Wi-Fi. It will then boot into the environment for the first time and set everything up, because it copies everything over from etc Skell directory, which copies everything over, which are our basic setups. And then you can log out, log back in, reboot it, whatever. But this is where I would like to see other OSs move to. I get tired of the fact that all these other OSs all have preset in log users. And I do like the fact that Armbian allows you to select your username and you don't have to go through and add them to the pseudo user, because we automatically do that on the first user.
That's nice. It's kind of like a more normal installation like you used to do. I think many of us have just gotten used to with embedded boards that it's like a lesser experience than what you have on your PC. But I like that you allow the user to configure things, and it's not just everyone has the same username and password.
Now,
which can actually be a problem. Like, there was I forget what it was. There was some worm or something a few years ago that was taking advantage of the fact that like all these embedded boards, all these dev boards and stuff typically have like the same username and password because everyone's just using like one of a few images, right?
Right.
So that's actually, I think, quite a good idea what you do.
The other thing too, the only thing I do think that we're going to start doing though, is we will be turning off eventually root logins, except for when you're on a terminal.
Yeah.
Because we find that to be one of the biggest security risks that all these OSs are doing nowadays. They still leave the root login open for everybody. And that is a big security hole that I have been fighting for years with Armbian. And I finally got Igor to agree that we need to turn that off. And I'm going to do the same thing in the RISC-V images. I'm going to disable the root SSH. We're not disabling the root user. We're disabling the root SSH.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
That is strictly for security. It is there for first login only because if you're going to do what we call a headless setup where there is no graphical, you got to have that SSH root login.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think, as an embedded developer, I've just gotten used to the case of like everything's just like root, which is actually really terrible, right? But that's kind of the default for many things, right? Like that. When you use build root, unless you do something, it's like, it's So I like what you're saying. More systems should work like that, right? I think that's a good idea.
Now, I would like also to see some of these other OSs come out. I would like to see Arch Linux make a RISC-V version. They haven't yet.
They
have a repo. But they don't have any builder or installer yet. You literally have to sit there and pick and pull parts and pieces in. Unlike what they've done now with the ARM, they now have built their installer to work on ARM.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, like, it's not official, but there's a person that's working on it. I think he's in China, so he tends to join the evening US time slot. But I don't know if this person's part of Wei Wu's group or not, but this has been mentioned on past open hours. This person has this going on. It's obviously it's not official. It's not like officially from the Arch Linux like surface, but it's like this person's effort. So that might be something to check out. Yeah, I think this person is part of the Chinese Academy of Sciences where Wei Wu's lab is. So next time, August 10th, I think there should be a good time to get more information about these sorts of things, since I think many of the developers from the Chinese Academy of Sciences should be on, hopefully.
All right. Cool. I'll make sure. If you bookmark that, I'll try to grab all this information so that we have it.
The open hours has actually been really helpful for that because, like with Wei Wu's lab and also just in general, there's a lot of things that are happening with Chinese developers, but it can be difficult to have visibility into that just because sometimes a lot of the contents might be in Chinese language. But Wei Wu does a really good job of distilling what's going on in his group and also in general, and like providing the information on the open hours. So hopefully he can give a good update next time, because yeah, like a lot of these things, it's like I didn't know that someone's doing a Lua JIT, and he'll be like, yeah, here's this person working on Lua. So it's always really nice to get updates from them.
Yeah, well, I think our project, which is fairly new, I mean, Babels and I have only really been doing this part of the RISC-V project where it got ported for 3 months, three and a half. It's stuff we hooked up back in May, and that's when all of a sudden he took the builder and ported it over to RISC-V and said, I'm going this way with it. And that's when we got a lot of pushback from the ARM community. But I think it's funny.
You mean May? You mean like 2 months ago? May? Like May this year?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Oh, so a lot of this is recent.
This is a brand new project that we took but we pounded it out. I mean, we got it to the point where images build, images work, and had no problem. Like I said, it was EXT Linux versus now we have UEFI. And that's a big jump in 2 months to go from EXT Linux to UEFI. Babels really knows what he's doing, and he did a really good job at it. I have a background in it. I'll give you my background real quick, guys. So, you know, I started out in BSDOS back in the 70s and 80s. I worked for the railroad for 28 years before I had to medically retire. And we had Windows NT and we had Unix servers. And I was the Unix guy. Plus I did all the switch controls. I did all the light controls. I did all the hard stuff for many, many years of making it all integrate so that when you go out on the train rails, it would tell them when to start, when to stop. It did all that switching and everything. And I maintained that for all that time. So I went from BSD over to Slackware because the part I had problem with BSDOS and FreeBSD, which I was also developed in, was the fact of the ports tree. Great idea, horrible implementation. Being that you constantly had to add patches, and it all got convoluted and nobody was maintaining patches, I went over to Slackware. Slackware, wonderful OS, great Linux start. Then I came down to Debian, and Debian has been great. I think Slackware could have been more, but Slackware kind of died off, even though it's still developed. It became too hard to maintain, too hard to, other than just using an install disk. Slackware hasn't even gotten a ARM or RISC-V version even going. They basically stuck with x80.
I don't think it's official, but there is one. It was forget the person's name. I
haven't heard anything about it. That's why.
Well, so he was the person that was doing it. Yeah, Alvaro Figueroa. He was part of the Beagle 5 beta test program. So he had been working on the Slackware port. I don't think it's official or anything like that, but he was just working on that because I think he was a Slackware developer and user. So that was the thing he wanted to see happen with RISC-V.
Yeah. By the way, Robert, reading your comment, actually, if you go use the UARTs, you don't even have to use the power if you're powering from USB, the USB 3 port. You only have to have the ground and the two TTL ports, and they work straight off the serial pins of the 40-pin header. You don't even have to add the power, but you can run the 5-volt power and it will boot. It just seems to be really low powered when you do that.
Well, that is, never mind.
Well, I was just reading your comment and I'm saying, yeah, I'm reading the 1.8 and 3.3, but I'm just saying you can boot
that
using
has nothing to do with the board power, but I don't have anything to add here. So I'll see you guys later. See ya.
But all right.
Bye.
But basically that's where we're going. So this has been a great conversation. I think where we're going with this is I hope that we can keep pushing things to where everything's better.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. I do have another meeting coming up at the bottom of the hour here. So yeah, thanks everyone.
All right, I appreciate your time, guys. And Henrik, I saw you once, but you logged out there. Didn't say much. You're hiding from us, man. You could have said something if you wanted to join us. But I just wanted to get in and let you guys know what we had been doing and how we had pounded things out so that there are new OS images. Because the most I've seen anybody using was the Fedora core image, and it was really hard to use for me. I couldn't use it. It was so slow to boot. It was so slow to use. I was just like frustrated. That's why I went the way of Ubuntu. So your mic's not on.
Yeah, I think were you trying to say something?
Yeah, he was speaking, but no audio. Okay. But I'll be back next time and I'll let somebody else talk, but thank you for allowing me to be in here and talk with you guys about this, and hope you guys get a chance to test the images and let us know how they work and what you would like to see in them.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, let me see, Heinrich, were you able to say something, or we didn't hear anything previous? Yeah, nope. We're still not hearing anything, unfortunately.
Maybe I have to mute for him. No.
No. I think it's probably just a config thing. I don't know. It happens to me often as well. I have too many ALSA sources.
Okay. Well, I will let you go so you can go to your next meeting, and I appreciate your time. And I hope you guys come talk with us over in the Discord channel. We can also do audio over there. This is also nice. I'd never used Zoom, so this was my first Zoom meeting, so rather interesting.
The main reason we use it is it's what RISC-V International has. So the person that helped set this up did it. So if there is ever any strong opinion, we could always use something else, but this was it was essentially what the person that helped set this up did. So that's what we use.
Well, you guys have a good one, and thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. And I'll shut up now.
All right. Have a good one. And then the next one's August 10th. All right. Bye.
Bye.